Good evening, dear friend. The day has carried many voices, many hurried footsteps, and countless thoughts that have asked for your attention. Now, for a little while, none of them need to follow you here. Find a comfortable place to rest. Let your shoulders soften. Allow your breathing to slow without effort. There is nowhere to arrive tonight, nowhere to accomplish, and nothing waiting to be solved. Together, we will simply wander. If these quiet journeys bring you comfort, you may wish to gently like this video and subscribe, so that whenever another peaceful evening arrives, another forgotten world will already be waiting for you. Tonight, our path leads to Kyoto. Not the bustling city known today, but a quieter Kyoto, where morning mist lingers beneath cedar branches, where wooden temple roofs gather the first drops of rain, and where entire landscapes can exist without rivers, mountains, or forests ever truly being present. There is a place where silence was carefully arranged, where emptiness became architecture, and where 15 ancient stones have spent centuries saying almost nothing at all. As night settles around us, let us leave the modern world behind and step softly onto worn wooden boards, polished by generations long before our own. The air carries the cool fragrance of damp earth. Somewhere beyond the surrounding hills, unseen streams descend from the mountains that cradle Kyoto like patient hands. Their waters feed forests of cedar, maple, and pine before disappearing into the basin below. Throughout summer, these mountains quietly hold the day's moisture, allowing gentle humidity to settle over the city long after sunset. It is this unique embrace of mountain and valley that gives life to the delicate mosses sleeping beside ancient stones. Nothing here seems eager. Even the wind appears to move with unusual restraint, slipping through bamboo groves before brushing softly against weathered timber. The silence is not empty. It is simply full of quieter things. The faint rustle of leaves, the distant call of unseen birds, the almost imperceptible shifting of cool evening air beneath wide temple eaves. Long before this place became known as Ryoan-ji, before monks walked its corridors or visitors searched its mysteries, these grounds belonged to another world. In the 11th century, this land formed part of an aristocratic estate owned by the powerful Fujiwara clan. Their lives unfolded beneath elegant wooden residences surrounded by gardens shaped according to the ideals of an earlier age. Those gardens celebrated abundance. Broad ponds reflected drifting clouds. Boats glided across still water. Bridges connected carefully composed islands. Trees, flowers, streams, and changing seasons filled every corner with gentle beauty. The landscape invited movement. It encouraged wandering. One walked through the garden to discover it. Centuries pass almost unnoticed when viewed from the patience of stone. Wood decays. Families disappear. Political fortunes rise and quietly dissolve like morning mist beneath the sun. The land remains. Its soil remembers every footprint without keeping any name. By the middle of the 15th century, another chapter quietly approached. In the year 1450, the estate came into the possession of Hosokawa Katsumoto, one of the highest-ranking deputies serving the Ashikaga shogunate. Where noble families had once sought refinement through elegant leisure, Katsumoto envisioned something profoundly different. The estate would become a Zen training temple, not a palace, not a residence, a place where the discipline of the mind could unfold as steadily as the passing seasons. Thus began the history of Ryoan, Jaya's a temple belonging to the Ji school of the Rinzai tradition of Zen Buddhism. The transformation was far deeper than replacing one set of buildings with another. The very purpose of space itself began to change. Instead of encouraging endless movement, architecture gradually invited stillness. Instead of offering countless objects to admire, it slowly learned the beauty of restraint. The buildings themselves reflected this quiet philosophy. Unadorned plaster walls stood beside exposed wooden beams whose natural grain remained visible beneath soft light. Sliding shoji screens could quietly disappear, allowing rooms to open toward the surrounding courtyards without sharp boundaries separating inside from outside. Nothing insisted upon its importance. Nothing demanded attention. The spaces between walls became as meaningful as the walls themselves. Zen would come to describe this quality through the idea of ma, the living interval between forms. An empty room was never merely vacant. It was waiting for footsteps, waiting for light, waiting for silence itself to become part of the architecture. As evening deepens, the polished cypress floors grow cooler beneath bare feet. The wood holds the memory of countless seasons: summer humidity, winter frost, autumn rain, spring mist. Each year leaves almost invisible traces that only time can write. Outside, beyond the open screens, the garden has not yet taken the form by which the world now remembers it. History seldom arrives fully formed. It gathers quietly, one careful decision after another, yet history rarely asks permission before changing its course. Only 17 years after the temple's foundation, Kyoto entered one of its darkest chapters. The Tea-nen War began in 1467. For 10 long years, conflict spread through the imperial capital. District after district disappeared beneath smoke. Wooden homes burned. Temples collapsed into ash. The ordered rhythms of daily life dissolved beneath uncertainty. Even here, where meditation had once sought inner stillness, destruction eventually arrived. The original buildings of Ryoan-ji did not survive. Fire consumed what patient hands had raised. Roofs that had sheltered quiet reflection vanished beneath flames. Wood returned to ash. Ash returned to earth. The mountains surrounding Kyoto remained. Morning fog still gathered among cedar branches. Rain still darkened the soil. The seasons continued their endless procession, indifferent to the ambitions of men. Years later, in 1499, the temple rose once more. The rebuilt complex included the hojo, the abbot's quarters, that would become inseparable from the garden known across the world today. Its broad wooden veranda stretched quietly beside an enclosed courtyard. At first glance, the veranda appears almost ordinary. Smooth cypress planks, low roof eaves, simple timber columns, nothing extravagant, nothing excessive. Yet every measurement gently guides perception. When seated upon this veranda, the roof lowers the gaze, softly concealing much of the open sky. The eyes are naturally directed toward the garden below, not upward, not outward. Only here, stone, sand, wall, nothing more, nothing less. Architecture quietly teaches attention without speaking a single word. It is easy to imagine that silence belongs only to places without sound. But silence also belongs to places where every unnecessary distraction has been gently removed. This is the beginning of another understanding that would shape the centuries ahead. The Zen idea known as mu, often translated as emptiness, sometimes as nothingness, or simply the void. Yet standing here, these words feel strangely insufficient. The empty spaces are not lacking, they are inviting. When trees are absent, the mind begins to imagine forests. When rivers disappear, flowing water somehow becomes even easier to hear. When mountains are removed, distant peaks quietly rise within memory itself. The space left behind does not remain empty for long. Human imagination enters without being asked. Perhaps that is why stillness has always been one of the gentlest collaborators of the human mind. It never tells us what to see. It simply creates enough room for seeing to happen. Somewhere beyond the temple grounds, evening moisture settles upon patches of moss tucked beneath shaded stones. Tiny stems lift invisible droplets from the surrounding air. Unlike great trees that carry water through hidden vessels, these ancient bryophytes quietly surrender themselves to the rhythm of the atmosphere itself. When the air grows dry, they gently curl inward, conserving what little moisture remains. When humidity returns, even after the lightest rain, they awaken within minutes, unfolding into vivid green once more. Life here does not conquer nature. It listens. Perhaps the monks who would one day care for these gardens notice something familiar in such quiet resilience. The strongest transformations often happen without announcement, without applause, without witnesses. The first stars begin appearing beyond the unseen roofline. We cannot see them from the veranda. The architecture does not permit it. And yet somehow their presence is still felt. The night continues whether our eyes follow it or not. So too does the world beyond these simple walls. Here, where wood, stone, earth, and silence have begun learning one another's language, another creation is slowly waiting to emerge. A garden without water, a landscape without mountains, a place where 15 weathered stones and a sea of pale granite will invite generations of quiet observers to discover that sometimes the deepest journeys begin without taking a single step. And as the cool night settles gently over Kyoto, the empty courtyard waits with the same patience it has always possessed, not asking to be understood, only asking to be quietly seen. The quiet courtyard offers nothing to grasp, and because of that the mind gradually loosens its own grip. Long before dawn, before the first visitor crosses the temple grounds, and before sunlight reaches the low earthen wall, another rhythm has already begun. It does not announce itself with bells or hurried footsteps. It begins with measured breathing upon polished cypress boards, with the faint creak of old timber responding to the coolness of morning, and with a pair of patient hands lifting a wooden rake whose weight has become as familiar as the changing seasons. Mist still lingers among the surrounding hills. The mountains that embrace Kyoto have gathered the night's moisture, and their silent gift settles gently over stone, timber, and moss alike. Every surface receives the morning differently. The wood drinks the damp air almost imperceptibly. The weathered clay wall darkens by a shade so subtle that only those who have watched it for decades might notice. Tiny beads of moisture gather within the soft cushions surrounding the stones, where delicate colonies of moss awaken not through effort, but simply because the atmosphere itself has changed. Nothing here hurries the arrival of day. The garden seems content to wait for light, just as the light patiently waits for the earth to receive it. When dawn finally reaches the courtyard, it does not arrive all at once. It slips quietly over the eastern edge of the enclosing wall, touching first the highest ridges of pale gravel, Thousands upon thousands of tiny fragments begin reflecting the newborn sun, each one fashioned from weathered granite that once rested deep within the mountains surrounding the Sherikoa River. Though often called sand, these pale grains possess the character of stone. Within each irregular fragment rests quartz that catches the morning light with a restrained brilliance. Feldspar lends a softer whiteness, while tiny dark flecks of biotite sleep unnoticed until the angle of the sun gently reveals them. Their broken edges refuse smoothness. They press against one another with quiet determination, each angular face helping the next remain exactly where careful hands have placed it. Even stillness depends upon invisible cooperation. The eye sees only whiteness. The earth beneath understands geometry. A monk lowers the rake. Its broad wooden head spans nearly the width of outstretched arms, and along its edge evenly spaced teeth descend several fingers deep into the gravel. Each tooth enters the pale surface without violence, compressing rather than scattering, shaping rather than disturbing. The first pull leaves behind a single uninterrupted line. Then another. Then another. Soon the courtyard begins breathing in parallel rhythms. No measurement is spoken aloud. No chalk marks divide the surface. Only years of practiced attention guide the movement. Each stride remains steady. Each inhalation quietly accompanies one motion. Each exhalation another. Before long, the entire expanse has become a field of perfectly ordered ridges stretching from one side of the garden to the other. The lines resemble flowing water, yet no water has ever crossed them. This quiet transformation asks very little of the observer, only patience. The gravel does not imitate a river because someone insists that it must. Instead, the changing light persuades the eye to complete what the hands intentionally leave unfinished. As the morning sun rises slightly higher, each raised crest catches brightness, while every shallow groove gathers shadow. Together they create delicate currents that seem almost ready to move. Nothing moves. Everything flows. Perhaps this is why the garden asks for stillness before understanding. Movement belongs first to perception. Only afterward does it belong to the world. The stones emerge slowly from this luminous sea. 15 companions, each carrying a history far older than the temple itself. Some bear the layered memory of chert. Others reveal the deep transformations of green schist, shaped beneath immense pressures long before human hands ever imagined monasteries, kingdoms, or names. Their surfaces remain uneven. Weather has rounded no certainty into them. Cracks invite moisture. Lichen has come and gone. Rain has polished some edges while leaving others rough enough to catch drifting fragments of moss. Around every cluster, green life gathers quietly. Not as decoration, as conversation. The upright forests of Suji Gok rise like miniature cedar groves surrounding the larger stones, their slender stems holding themselves with remarkable dignity despite their tiny scale. Nearby, creeping high, Gok patiently weaves itself across shaded ground, joining one patch of earth to another until the boundary between separate lives quietly disappears. Here and there, rounded cushions of shara Gok rest in deeper shade, their pale silvery surfaces storing unseen reservoirs of moisture within delicate cellular chambers. The garden never asks which life is greatest. Stone remains because it hardly changes. Moss remains because it never resists change. Together they understand time better than either could alone. As morning humidity slowly yields to daylight, Every moss responds without hesitation. There are no hidden channels carrying water upward through stems, no roots drawing nourishment from unseen depths. Instead, each tiny leaf simply receives whatever the surrounding air is willing to offer. When dryness arrives, the green gradually folds inward, conserving itself in quiet patience. When moisture returns, life unfolds almost immediately, as though awakening had merely been another form of waiting. Perhaps endurance sometimes resembles surrender more than strength. The old wall surrounding the garden has witnessed this gentle cycle beyond counting. Its surface was shaped from clay carefully, prepared with rapeseed oil generations ago. Over centuries, the oil slowly traveled through the earthen body, meeting sunlight, rain, winter frost, and humid summers until the once uniform surface acquired rich bands of brown and ochre unlike any deliberate painting. No artisan planned these colors. Time accepted the commission. Every season added another transparent brushstroke. Every storm signed its name without letters. The wall neither frames the garden nor imprisons it. Instead, it offers the eye somewhere to rest before returning once again to the pale field below. Nothing here competes for attention. Everything quietly shares it. Far beyond these walls, Kyoto continues awakening. Roofs glisten beneath lingering dew. The fragrance of damp timber rises from narrow streets. Invisible kitchens begin warming the morning air. Yet none of these distant movements disturb the measured silence gathered within the temple grounds. The world has not been excluded. It has simply become softer. Along the veranda, polished by generations of careful footsteps, meditation quietly resumes. The monks do not descend into the gravel. The pale surface remains untouched. The garden is approached not by entering it, but by allowing one's attention to cross a distance the body respectfully leaves undisturbed. The low eaves continue their gentle work. The sky withdraws from view. Only earth remains before the eyes. Stone, gravel, wall, light. It is remarkable how much the world can contain after almost everything has been removed. From this single place, another quiet mystery gradually reveals itself. The stones seem fixed, unchanging, entirely known. Yet certainty proves surprisingly difficult. One gaze discovers 14. Another discovers a different 14. A slight shift along the veranda allows a hidden companion to emerge, while another quietly slips behind its larger neighbor. No matter where one sits, one stone patiently refuses to appear. It is never absent, only unseen. Perhaps some truths ask not to be possessed all at once. Perhaps completeness would leave nothing more to seek. The garden never withholds out of secrecy. It simply reminds every observer that perspective itself is always incomplete. Even silence reveals different voices, depending upon where one chooses to listen. The morning grows brighter. The shadows within the gravel become shorter, softening the illusion of flowing currents as the higher sun gently flattens the landscape's delicate relief. The garden changes without anyone rearranging a single stone. Light becomes another quiet gardener, one that never leaves footprints. And somewhere within that changing brightness, without announcing the moment, the empty spaces begin speaking more clearly than the objects themselves. Not because they contain answers, but because they never insist upon them. The longer one remains upon the veranda, the less the garden appears to be made of stone. Instead, it begins to resemble intervals. The gentle pause between one breath and the next. the quiet space separating two drifting clouds, the brief stillness that follows the settling of a leaf before another breeze remembers the tree from which it came. Nothing within the courtyard asks to become the center of attention. Even the stones seem content to share their silence. From where the monks sit, the polished cypress beneath folded legs carries a coolness that slowly fades as the morning advances. The grain of the wood, worn smooth by generations of patient meditation, catches the fingertips almost imperceptibly. It is difficult to know how many hands have rested here over the centuries. Perhaps that is part of the temple's kindness. It preserves traces without preserving ownership. The veranda belongs to no single lifetime. It simply continues receiving those willing to sit. Beyond its edge, the pale field remains untouched. No footprints interrupt its carefully ordered surface. The absence of crossing is not prohibition, it is respect. A landscape that invites contemplation does not always invite possession. One can spend an entire morning approaching a place without ever shortening the distance between body and stone. The eye travels where the feet remain still. In this quiet separation, another form of closeness begins to emerge. Far beyond Kyoto, long before these temple walls stood among the cedars, painters of China's Song dynasty had discovered that a mountain need not occupy an entire scroll to suggest immeasurable distance. A single dark ridge surrounded by untouched paper could carry the weight of valleys, rivers, clouds, and forgotten villages. The brush often left more unpainted than painted. The empty paper completed the mountain. Here, beneath the low roof of the Hojo, that same quiet confidence finds another language. No ink has touched this courtyard, yet the white gravel offers the eye a surface much like untouched paper. The stones become brush strokes. The moss gathers like soft washes of muted green. The enclosing wall forms a distant horizon that asks for nothing beyond itself. An entire landscape has folded inward until it rests within a space no larger than a modest courtyard. Distance has not disappeared. It has simply become smaller without becoming less profound. The centuries surrounding the Muromachi period gradually learned to appreciate such restraint. The earlier gardens of aristocratic estates had welcomed long walks beside broad ponds and graceful bridges. Their beauty unfolded step by step, revealing itself through movement. Here, movement itself has been quietly reduced. The journey now belongs almost entirely to attention. One seated observer may travel farther than another who has walked for miles. Outside the temple, the city continues rebuilding itself after years of hardship. The memory of the Qi Nen War lingers, not as loud sorrow, but as a gentle awareness carried within timber, stone, and empty foundations. There are moments when scarcity teaches forms of beauty that abundance never considers. A vast lake demands earth, labor, flowing water, and generous space. A sea imagined within pale granite asks only for careful perception. The mountains remain beyond the walls. The rivers continue flowing unseen. Nothing has truly been lost, only transformed. The morning breeze arrives carrying the cool fragrance of damp cedar bark from distant slopes. Its passage is almost invisible until it brushes lightly across the moss surrounding one of the larger stone clusters. Tiny stems sway together so delicately that movement becomes visible only because everything else remains still. Among the upright sugi, moisture continues clinging to narrow leaves like countless transparent lanterns awaiting sunlight. Nearby, The spreading high, Gok has quietly stitched together fragments of shaded earth into a single living tapestry. Hidden beneath deeper shadow, rounded cushions of shira-ga, Gok cradle the night's remaining water within silent chambers no eye can see. Every species answers the same morning differently. No voice argues with another. The garden has never required uniformity in order to become harmonious. It asks only that each form remain faithful to its own nature. Perhaps this is why the old instructions for placing stones begin not with command, but with listening. Long before these rocks found their resting places, an earlier generation recorded observations that would continue whispering across centuries. The Sakuteki, composed in the 11th century, offered those who shaped gardens an unusual kind of guidance. It did not urge mastery over stone. Instead, it encouraged obedience to the stone itself. Each rock carried its own direction, its own balance, its own quiet preference already written within its natural form. Human hands were asked not to impose, but to recognize. One stone leaned toward the earth. Another reached upward. Some wished to anchor. Others seemed born to suggest motion while never moving at all. The garden therefore emerged less like construction and more like conversation. A patient exchange between intention and geology. Perhaps wisdom often begins where certainty decides to listen instead of speaking. The stones of Ryoan-ji never announce why they stand where they do. They simply rest as though they had always belonged together. Morning continues climbing the walls. The long shadows that earlier stretched across the gravel have shortened into finer threads, softening the illusion of waves. The ridges remain perfectly intact. The eye simply receives them differently. Light alters meaning without altering form. How many human lives unfold the same way? The polished wall surrounding the courtyard now glows with warmer tones. Its ochre surface, patiently shaped through generations of weather, reveals subtle variations impossible to notice at first glance. Here a darker stain where countless rains descended. There a pale patch where years of sunlight slowly lifted older colors toward quiet gold. The rapeseed oil, once blended into the clay, has spent centuries journeying outward through the wall itself, leaving behind an appearance no painter could faithfully imitate. Time has become the final craftsman. Even imperfection follows careful laws. Beyond the temple, somewhere hidden among bamboo groves and shaded pathways, water continues its patient descent through another garden. It enters a narrow bamboo flume and begins filling the open mouth of a hollow tube balanced delicately upon its pivot. The mechanism has no awareness of hours. It knows only weight. Moment by moment, the water gathers until gravity quietly changes its mind. The bamboo tips. A clear stream spills into the waiting basin below. An instant later, relieved of its burden, the tube swings backward. Its tail meets stone with a single hollow note. Tok. The sound rises cleanly through the morning air before dissolving almost as quickly as it appeared. Then silence returns. Not because the sound has ended, because it has completed itself. Several breaths pass. Again the water gathers. Again the balance changes. Again the bamboo speaks. The interval between each strike belongs neither to clock nor calendar, only to flowing water, only to gravity, only to patience. Perhaps this quiet rhythm explains why the sound never startles the garden. It belongs to the same slow conversation already unfolding among moss, stone, timber, and light. Everything here seems to understand that repetition need not become monotony. The seasons repeat, rain repeats, breathing repeats. Yet no morning ever borrows the exact face of another. The monastery awakens gently around these familiar rhythms. Along covered wooden corridors, monks begin walking with measured steps. Their pace is almost inseparable from breathing itself. One half step unfolds during a single full breath. Another follows only after the lungs have quietly emptied. The corridors guide every movement through deliberate right angles, never allowing hurried shortcuts across open ground. Even walking becomes architecture. Even architecture becomes a teacher that never raises its voice. No one rushes toward the next destination. The path itself has already become the destination. The world outside continues changing. Clouds gather and depart. Empires rise and disappear. Names are remembered and eventually forgotten. Yet within this carefully tended courtyard, another measure of time quietly persists. Not counted in years, not counted in rulers, not even counted in seasons. It is measured in returning attention. In the countless mornings when a monk lifts the same wooden rake. In the quiet afternoons when sunlight traces new patterns across familiar stone. In evenings when the garden slowly surrenders its colors to gathering dusk without ever surrendering its presence. Perhaps this is why the empty spaces never seem empty at all. They have spent centuries collecting moments too gentle to leave behind. Gentle changes reveal themselves only to those who remain long enough to notice them. The brightness that only moments ago rested upon the gravel begins to soften as a thin veil of cloud drifts silently across the Kyoto sky. No shadow rushes into the courtyard. Instead, light gradually loosens its hold, allowing every surface to breathe in quieter tones. The white expanse no longer gleams with crystalline brilliance. It glows. The ridges drawn before sunrise lose none of their precision, yet they now resemble the surface of a distant lake beneath an overcast morning, rather than the sparkling current of a clear day. Without moving a single grain, the entire landscape has quietly become another place. The garden has not changed. Only the conversation between earth and light has found a different voice. Along the veranda, the fragrance of cypress deepens as the air grows slightly heavier with moisture. The scent is faint, warm wood touched by cool humidity, carrying echoes of countless rainy seasons absorbed into its grain. It mingles with the subtle fragrance of damp clay from the old wall, where centuries of rain have slowly taught the earth to wear time as gently as moss wears stone. Nothing here resists becoming older. Age is not hidden. It is welcomed with extraordinary patience. Perhaps that is why the buildings seem less constructed than grown. The exposed timbers retain their natural character without elaborate ornament. The plaster walls accept small imperfections without apology. Sliding shoji screens glide quietly aside, allowing the boundary between room and courtyard to disappear almost completely. There is no dramatic threshold. The inside simply becomes willing to meet the outside. The space between them remains beautifully uncertain. This uncertainty is never confusing. It is peaceful. The room does not end where the wooden floor ends. The courtyard does not begin where the gravel starts. Instead, both seem suspended within the same calm breath. Somewhere nearby, unseen beyond another roofline, a bamboo broom begins its slow work. Its bristles whisper softly across weathered boards, not hurried, not forceful, Each stroke gathers a handful of pine needles carried overnight by the mountain wind. Every fallen leaf is lifted with enough care that the gravel beyond remains undisturbed. The sweep is neither cleaning nor decoration. It is attention becoming visible. Within the monastery, this quiet labor belongs to something deeper than maintenance. Hands move. The mind settles. Body and awareness gradually discover the same rhythm. There is no separation between meditation and work. Only different forms through which presence quietly expresses itself. A leaf removed from the veranda. A weed gently lifted from beside a moss cushion. A rake drawing another measured line across pale granite. Each action leaves almost nothing behind except greater stillness. The world often celebrates what changes dramatically. These gardens have always trusted what changes almost invisibly. Near one cluster of stones, a tiny thread of green reaches across the gravel's edge. It is not meant to be there. A wandering sprout has quietly found enough moisture to begin its brief journey. Before long, gentle fingers will notice it. It will be removed without anger, not because green is unwelcome, but because every element here has accepted a particular conversation. Even restraint requires care. Chemical remedies never enter this quiet place. The delicate communities of moss resting against the stones depend upon a balance too subtle for harsh intervention. Bare hands and slender bamboo tweezers become the only instruments trusted to preserve what cannot easily be restored. Patience accomplishes what force would quietly destroy. Above the courtyard, the cloud continues drifting westward. A narrow ribbon of sunlight returns. This time it finds one dark stone whose surface still carries the memory of yesterday's rain deep within microscopic pores invisible to the eye. Where the rock remains slightly damp, its colors awaken. Muted gray deepens toward blue. Soft green emerges from hidden minerals. The surface reflects light with a quiet richness impossible during dry weather. Nearby stones, already warmed by the morning, remain pale and matte. Together they create a harmony not through sameness, but through difference. Even rain leaves behind invisible memories. The gravel beneath them remains dry. Its pale mineral body tells another story. Each fragment, born from weathered biotite granite gathered long ago from the upper basin of the Sharakawa River, possesses edges too angular to surrender easily. These countless irregular forms embrace one another through friction alone. No hidden adhesive binds them. No unseen foundation fixes their place. Their stability arises from relationship. Every grain quietly supports another. Perhaps communities sometimes resemble gravel more than walls. Strength appears not through uniformity, but through countless humble connections too small to notice individually. Across the courtyard, another monk kneels beside the broad wooden rake. Yesterday's gentle breeze has softened one section of parallel ridges, almost imperceptibly, enough that the eye might never detect it, enough that attentive hands cannot ignore it. The rake lowers once again. Its teeth settle into the pale surface with practiced certainty. The first pull restores the interrupted rhythm. The second extends it seamlessly into the lines already waiting. Where straight currents approach the clustered stones, movement becomes more deliberate. Now circles begin. Carefully measured rings expand outward around the weathered rocks. Each curve meets the parallel lines at precisely calculated points, allowing one geometry to yield gracefully to another without confusion or interruption. Nothing overlaps carelessly. nothing competes. The meeting itself becomes beautiful. Watching these circles emerge, it becomes strangely difficult to decide whether they surround the stones or whether the stones have quietly invited the circles into being. The answer changes depending upon where one rests the eyes. Perhaps cause and effect sometimes exchange places without anyone noticing. Far beyond the temple, unseen streams continue descending from Kyoto's surrounding mountains. Real water flows over real stones beneath cedar branches. Within the courtyard, no stream exists. Yet countless observers have found rivers here. Some have discovered islands floating through mist. Others have seen mountain peaks rising above hidden clouds. Still others have found nothing at all except 15 stones upon white gravel. The garden has never insisted that one vision replace another. Its silence remains generous enough to receive them all. Emptiness does not demand agreement, it simply offers room. The old teachings call this absence mu. Yet here, the word feels less like emptiness than invitation. The fewer images the garden presents, the more faithfully each visitor discovers the landscape already waiting within memory. One observer remembers distant coastlines. Another recalls childhood snowfall. Someone else sees only weather. No interpretation remains permanently correct. None remains entirely mistaken. The courtyard quietly completes every mind differently. Afternoon approaches almost unnoticed. The angle of sunlight shifts once more, shortening the delicate shadows hidden within the gravel's grooves. Earlier, each ridge resembled flowing water. Now the pale field appears calmer still, almost flat, almost limitless. The illusion has changed because the sun has continued its patient journey across the sky. The gravel has remained exactly where it was. Sometimes truth is less about what changes than about where the light happens to fall. Along the covered corridors connecting the temple halls, measured footsteps continue their unhurried rhythm. Every turn follows a precise right angle established generations ago. No diagonal shortcuts tempt the body. The architecture quietly shapes movement before thought has time to decide. Each corridor becomes a gentle reminder that the shortest path is not always the deepest one. Beyond the mountain gate lies the ordinary world, where roads branch without end and countless destinations call for attention. Within these walls, every path gradually returns the traveler toward presence, not through distance, through repetition made meaningful. And while the afternoon settles softly over Kyoto, the garden continues offering its oldest gift, not certainty, nor mystery, but a place where both may rest together without ever asking which should speak first. There are places where questions slowly lose their urgency. The longer the eye rests upon the quiet courtyard, the more naturally it releases the desire to decide what the stones represent. Islands, mountains, drifting clouds, distant shores. Each possibility arrives gently, lingers for a while, and then dissolves as softly as it came. The garden never asks one image to defeat another. Perhaps certainty is only one way of seeing. The afternoon air grows warmer, though the deep eaves of the Hojo continue offering generous shade. Their broad wooden form has done so through countless summers, quietly shaping not only comfort but attention itself. By lowering the horizon and concealing much of the open sky, the roof asks the gaze to settle upon the world immediately before it. It is a remarkably gentle form of guidance. Nothing is forbidden. Nothing is commanded. The architecture simply whispers where the eyes may rest. Beyond the shade, the gravel reflects a softer brilliance than before. Individual fragments remain too small to notice alone, yet together they become an expanse that seems almost weightless beneath the afternoon light. Somewhere within every handful lie grains of quartz, pale feldspar, and dark flecks of biotite, each preserving the memory of granite slowly weathered by mountains long before this temple was imagined. Time has many ways of becoming visible. Sometimes it appears as an old tree widening its trunk, sometimes as timber polished by generations of quiet hands, sometimes as stone becoming gravel. The mountain never truly disappeared. It simply learned to exist in smaller forms. A faint breeze wanders into the courtyard. Its passage cannot be seen directly. Only the smallest lives acknowledge its arrival. Tiny moss leaves lean together for a single breath before standing quietly once more. Somewhere near the base of a weathered stone, a nearly invisible filament trembles, catching a droplet that has lingered since morning. The water hesitates, then slips silently into the living cushion below. No sound accompanies its journey, yet an entire community receives it. Within the rounded mounds of Shira, countless air-filled cells quietly store moisture with remarkable generosity. They gather what the atmosphere offers without demanding more. Even when the surrounding air begins to dry, these soft cushions continue carrying hidden reserves, sustaining life through simple patience rather than abundance. Nearby, the taller Shugi rises like a miniature forest surrounding the ancient rocks, each upright stem holding itself with quiet dignity. Their slender forms seem almost architectural, echoing the cedar groves beyond the monastery walls. Large forests, small forests, the same stillness inhabits both. Perhaps scale has always mattered less than presence. Across the veranda, another monk pauses beside the wooden pillar before continuing his measured walk. His robe barely stirs as he passes through alternating bands of light and shade cast by the roof above. There is no destination visible from here. Only another corridor, another careful turn, another sequence of footsteps matching the slow rhythm of breathing. Half a step, one full breath, another half step. Air enters, air leaves. The body quietly remembers that movement can become listening. The covered passage joins one hall to another with unwavering precision. Every angle has been chosen deliberately. No wandering shortcuts interrupt the geometry. The temple seems to understand that a person's posture changes the quality of thought. A hurried path invites hurried attention. A deliberate path gradually cultivates deliberate awareness. Even silence possesses its own architecture. Far to the south stands the mountain gate, the salmon. Beyond it stretches the ordinary world with its countless voices, ambitions, disappointments, reunions, and departures. Travelers enter carrying dust upon their sandals and thoughts upon their shoulders. Crossing beneath the great gate does not erase those burdens. It simply allows them to grow lighter, step by quiet step. Northward, the halls continue in gentle succession, each inviting a slightly different form of presence. The Buddha Hall receives devotion without spectacle. The Dharma Hall offers words that eventually dissolve into listening. The abbot's quarters settle into ordinary daily life, where tea is poured, floors are swept, robes are folded, and conversations become softer than footsteps. The temple does not separate the sacred from the ordinary. It patiently allows the ordinary to reveal its sacredness, Clouds gather again above Kyoto. Though unseen from the veranda, their presence announces itself through changing air. Humidity deepens almost imperceptibly, carrying the cool fragrance of distant rain before a single drop has fallen. The moss senses it first. Leaves that had remained quietly folded through the warmer hours begin opening almost invisibly. No command is given, no signal sounds. Life simply recognizes the atmosphere. How extraordinary that some living things respond not to clocks, but to the character of the air itself. Their water is borrowed. Their stillness is borrowed. Their awakening is borrowed. Nothing is possessed. Everything is received. Perhaps this quiet dependence explains why the garden never feels proud. It knows how much it owes to clouds beyond the mountains. A little later, somewhere within another secluded corner of the temple grounds, water continues slipping through a bamboo channel. The hollow tube slowly fills. Its balance remains patient. Weight gathers without impatience. Then, almost unexpectedly, gravity reaches a quiet decision. The bamboo tips forward. Clear water pours into the waiting basin. An instant later, tock. The sound is bright enough to awaken attention, yet too brief to disturb peace. It travels through shaded pathways, brushes lightly against timber columns, and fades among cedar trunks before silence gently welcomes it home again. One could count the intervals between these quiet notes. 10 seconds, perhaps 20, sometimes longer. Yet before long, numbers themselves lose importance. Expectation softens. The listener ceases waiting for the next sound. Instead, each strike simply arrives when it is ready, like rain, like dusk, like memory. Within the courtyard, another kind of rhythm continues unfolding. The gravel, carefully shaped several mornings ago, still preserves the sharp ridges drawn by the rake. Its countless angular fragments continue holding one another in place through the quiet friction of irregular edges. Had they become smooth through endless weathering, the ridges would gradually soften beneath wind and rain. Even permanence requires renewal. In time, the gravel must be lifted from the garden, washed carefully to remove accumulated pollen and fine dust. Freshly crushed granite joins the older stones, restoring the delicate geometry hidden within every grain. Nothing survives by remaining untouched forever. Preservation, too, is a conversation with time. The old earthen wall understands this well. Its protective cypress, bark roof has watched countless storms descend upon Kyoto. Layer after layer of bark quietly shields the clay beneath from relentless rain. Decades pass before those weathered coverings surrender to age. Then new bark replaces old, not to make the wall younger, only to help it continue becoming older. The garden has never attempted to escape time. It has simply learned to accompany it. Toward the rear of the Hojo, where footsteps become even fewer and voices softer still, another stone waits almost unnoticed. Unlike the great weathered rocks resting upon white gravel, this one holds clear water within a carefully carved basin. Its shape resembles an ancient Chinese coin with a square opening at its center. Around that quiet pool are 4 simple characters. Their message does not proclaim abundance, nor achievement, nor victory. Instead, they gently remind anyone willing to kneel beside the water, I learn only to be content. The words ask for no audience. The basin never calls attention to itself. Those who pass too quickly may never notice it at all. Yet for those who pause, the reflection resting upon the water quietly joins the inscription. Contentment becomes something seen rather than explained. A face, a sky glimpsed only briefly, a ripple disappearing before another thought arrives. The afternoon gradually begins its slow descent toward evening. The light softens once more. Shadows lengthen almost imperceptibly beneath the stones. The pale gravel prepares to receive another sunset, just as it has received thousands before, without memory, without anticipation, and without ever growing tired of welcoming the light home. As the afternoon slowly leans toward evening, the colors of the courtyard begin withdrawing into quieter shades. The brilliance of the white gravel softens first. Then the warm tones of the old earthen wall deepen, as though the clay itself remembers every sunset that has ever rested upon its surface. Ochre gradually becomes amber. The amber slips gently toward brown. The transformation is so patient that it is impossible to say exactly when one color becomes another. Time rarely announces its smallest miracles. It simply allows them to happen while no one is trying to measure them. The polished veranda responds in its own quiet way. Throughout the day, sunlight has warmed the cypress boards beneath countless invisible grains of dust drifting through the open air. Now, as the heat slowly leaves the timber, a faint fragrance rises once again, a gentle mingling of resin-aged wood and the cool breath descending from Kyoto's surrounding mountains. Even the air seems to remember the forests from which these beams once grew. Nothing here has truly forgotten where it began. The clay remembers the field. The gravel remembers the mountain. The timber remembers the cedar. The water remembers the cloud. And perhaps people, though less certain of it, also carry forgotten landscapes quietly within themselves. A monk kneels once more near the edge of the courtyard, not to create, simply to notice. One small pine needle has found its way onto the pale gravel since morning. Its weight is almost nothing. Its presence changes almost everything. Against the broad white surface, the single dark needle becomes unexpectedly visible. It has not fallen in the wrong place, only a place where it does not belong for long. Two fingers lift it gently. The gravel beneath remains untouched. No ridge collapses, no circle breaks. The gesture lasts only a heartbeat, yet the attention it required has been quietly prepared by years. There are forms of care so delicate that they leave no evidence except their absence. Evening light settles lower. Once more the grooves of the Saman begin gathering long. Narrow shadows, though unlike the crisp geometry of dawn, these shadows possess a softer edge. They seem less concerned with revealing the precision of the rake than with allowing the garden to gradually dissolve into twilight. The sea of gravel no longer resembles water beneath morning sunlight. Now it recalls moonlight waiting beneath the horizon. One landscape, many seasons of light. The stones receive this change without resistance. Dry throughout much of the afternoon, their surfaces have returned to quiet restraint. The richer blues and deep greens awakened by moisture now rest beneath a muted veil, concealed until another rain chooses to visit. Nothing insists upon remaining beautiful at every moment. The garden has never feared simplicity, perhaps because it understands that beauty returning is often gentler than beauty remaining. A breeze carries the faint scent of distant earth. Somewhere beyond the temple walls, rain has already reached another valley. Not here, not yet. The clouds move slowly across the mountains enclosing Kyoto's basin, gathering moisture as they travel. The moss feels their approach before the first drop falls. It always has. Tiny leaves, almost invisible against the shaded stones, begin opening with extraordinary patience. There is no urgency in their awakening. They respond not to expectation, but to presence. The atmosphere changes. They answer. No announcement passes between them. No language is needed. Watching such quiet obedience to the world, it becomes difficult to know whether the moss survives because it is resilient or because it has never tried to become anything other than itself. Along the covered corridors, footsteps have grown fewer. Those still walking move with the same measured pace as before, though evening lends every sound a deeper resonance. The polished boards answer, each step with the gentlest murmur. Wood speaks differently after sunset. It cools. It contracts almost imperceptibly. Its voice grows lower. The corridors, joining one hall to another through deliberate right angles, begin collecting shadows beneath their eaves. The lines of the temple remain perfectly clear, yet their edges soften as daylight withdraws. Architecture begins surrendering itself to darkness without ever disappearing. Perhaps faith resembles this, not shining more brightly than the night, but remaining quietly present within it. Somewhere farther north, beyond the familiar rhythm of the veranda, another temple garden settles beneath the same evening sky. Its walls differ. Its pathways follow another arrangement, yet the same breath of mountain air wanders through its pines. The same moisture gathers upon its moss. The same silence arrives before darkness. The temples do not imitate one another. They simply listen to the same landscape. Across northern Kyoto, the broad grounds of Daitoku-ji have done so for centuries. Its many enclosed temples rest within protective walls like separate conversations unfolding inside one greater dialogue. Roofed corridors join halls along their unwavering north-south alignment, quietly guiding both air and people through a progression no signpost needs to explain. Wind enters through the southern gate. Light follows. Footsteps answer. The temple does not command harmony. It merely provides conditions in which harmony may appear. As daylight continues fading, voices become almost unnecessary. The ordinary tasks of the monastery gradually approach their close. A broom leans once again against weathered timber. The wide wooden rake rests where it has rested countless evenings before. The bamboo tweezers lie quietly beside folded cloth. Nothing celebrates the work completed. Nothing mourns the work that tomorrow will begin again. The tools understand repetition better than words ever could. Rain will flatten the ridges. Wind will scatter needles. Pollen will settle unnoticed across pale gravel. Morning will return. Hands will answer. The cycle never seeks novelty. Its dignity comes from faithful return. Perhaps this is why the garden never appears finished. Completion would leave no room for tomorrow's care. The old clay wall seems to know this as well. Beneath its protective roof of cypress bark, the earthen body continues weathering season after season. Decades slowly pass until the bark itself grows too tired to shelter the clay beneath. Then careful hands replace it, not because the old roof has failed, but because both roof and wall belong to a promise extending beyond a single lifetime. Those who renew the covering know they may never witness its next renewal. Still, they prepare it for those who will. There is something profoundly peaceful about work whose reward belongs to strangers yet unborn. The last light reaches the carved water basin behind the hojo. For one brief moment, its still surface reflects a fragment of evening sky framed by the stone's circular form. The four characters surrounding the quiet pool remain unchanged. I learn only to be content. As shadows deepen, the words themselves become harder to read. Yet perhaps their meaning grows clearer. Contentment has never depended upon brightness, only upon attention. A small breeze passes across the basin. The reflected sky trembles. The inscription remains. Water changes. Stone waits. Night approaches without choosing between them. Beyond the walls, the first evening insects begin their gentle chorus among grasses hidden from view. Their voices never enter the courtyard directly. Instead, they arrive softened by distance, blending with the cooling air until sound itself feels almost like another layer of twilight settling over Kyoto. Soon the garden will belong less to sight than to memory. The stones will remain exactly where they have always been. The gravel will continue holding the patient lines drawn before sunrise. The moss will quietly gather the night's moisture, and in the darkness, where fewer forms can be seen, the spaces between them will seem larger than ever. Not because they have grown, but because silence has gently widened them from within. Darkness does not arrive here as an ending. It gathers gently beneath the temple eaves, settles among the weathered stones, and slowly erases the sharp edges that daylight had so carefully revealed. One by one, the smallest details surrender themselves to the night, not through disappearance, but through quiet acceptance. The gravel is the first to change. Its countless pale fragments no longer reflect the brilliance of the sun. Instead, they begin collecting the faint silver of the rising moon, becoming softer than white, calmer than grey. The carefully raked ridges remain exactly where they were drawn before dawn, though now they can only be sensed through delicate variations of light that drift across their surface. The garden asks less of the eyes. It begins speaking to memory instead. The stones become silhouettes. Some appear nearer than they truly are. Others retreat into darkness until only their presence remains. It becomes strangely difficult to distinguish where one form ends and another begins. Perhaps every landscape grows more truthful after sunset. Without color competing for attention, shape becomes quieter. Without detail insisting upon recognition, the imagination learns to move more gently. A cool current of air descends from the surrounding mountains, carrying with it the freshness of forests hidden beyond the temple walls. The cedar groves, invisible beneath the night sky, continue releasing their quiet fragrance into the basin of Kyoto. Moisture gathers once more among branches, leaves, and moss, settling gradually across the monastery like an unseen veil. The temperature falls almost imperceptibly. The timber notices, the clay notices, the moss notices. The people who have spent many years within these walls notice as well. The body learns to recognize changes too small for language. Near the clustered stones, tiny droplets begin forming upon the soft green cushions that rest against ancient rock. The moss does not reach for them. It simply receives them. Minute by minute, invisible moisture enters delicate tissues until leaves that had endured the warmth of afternoon slowly unfurl into richer shades of green concealed within the darkness. No celebration accompanies this awakening. Life quietly resumes where no audience can see it. There is something deeply peaceful about transformations that do not require witnesses. The old wall surrounding the garden now seems almost to dissolve into the night. Only its broad horizontal presence remains, gently embracing the courtyard without asking to be noticed. The ochre tones that glowed beneath the afternoon sun have yielded to muted charcoal and earth, yet beneath those quiet colors rests the same clay patiently weathered by centuries. Rain has touched it. Winter frost has tightened it. Summer heat has dried it. Autumn mist has softened it again. The wall carries no memory of a single season. It carries all of them together. Somewhere beyond the veranda, the narrow bamboo channel continues, guiding water through darkness. The stream cannot be seen, only heard. A gentle trickle follows the familiar path toward the waiting bamboo tube. Water gathers, weight slowly shifts. For a little while nothing happens. Then Toke. The hollow note travels farther beneath the night than it ever did beneath the brightness of day. The surrounding silence has grown deeper. Sound now moves through it as a small lantern moves through darkness, not overpowering the night, but gently revealing its depth. The echo lingers among timber beams before fading into the breathing forest beyond. Again the garden waits, not for another sound, simply for whatever comes next. Night has its own measure of time. The interval between one bamboo strike and another feels longer now, though the water flows with the same patient rhythm as before. Perhaps darkness stretches moments the way dawn once stretched shadows. Nothing within the mechanism has changed. Only the listener. The polished cypress veranda slowly releases the last warmth gathered during daylight. Sitting here, one can almost feel the gentle exchange taking place beneath folded legs as the body offers its warmth to the wood, while the wood offers its coolness in return. Neither keeps what it receives. The exchange itself is enough. Above, concealed by the deep eaves, the sky remains largely hidden from view. Only an occasional fragment of moonlight finds its way into the courtyard, slipping quietly between rooflines before resting upon a single stone or a narrow band of gravel. The architecture continues its quiet discipline even at night. It reveals only enough, never everything. This restraint has accompanied the temple since its rebuilding centuries ago. When fire consumed the earlier structures during the years of conflict, it also carried away countless ordinary moments that no chronicle ever recorded. Conversations over evening tea, the familiar sound of sandals crossing wooden floors, the scent of rain entering through open screens, the patient repetition of sweeping, raking and silent walking. Such moments rarely survive in written history, yet perhaps they are the very substance from which places are truly made. When the temple rose again in 1499, those ordinary rhythms quietly returned. New timber received familiar footsteps. Fresh plaster reflected familiar light. Silence found another home. Buildings can be rebuilt. Habits of attention can also be rebuilt, even after great loss. Somewhere within the sleeping monastery, a sliding shoji door glides gently across its wooden track. The sound lasts only a heartbeat. Paper, wood, stillness. Then nothing. No conversation follows. No footsteps hurry across the floor. The quiet simply becomes whole once more. The empty spaces within the rooms seem larger at night. Without daylight filling them, they become almost impossible to measure. This is where begins to feel less like architecture and more like breathing. Not the walls, not the floor, not the ceiling, but the gentle openness allowing each of them to exist together without crowding one another. Even darkness requires space in which to settle. Beyond another corridor, where the temple grounds gradually merge with shaded groves, fallen leaves rest upon damp earth. No broom will disturb them until morning. Tonight they belong to the forest. Tomorrow they may belong to the monastery. Nothing argues over such small boundaries. The wind has always understood that every place eventually shares itself with another. Far beyond Kyoto, mountains continue standing beneath the same moon. Their granite slowly weathers through frost, rain, and countless seasons, releasing tiny fragments that one day may begin another quiet journey. Some will remain upon distant slopes. Some will travel with rivers. Long ago, others found their way from the upper basin of the Shirakawa River, where patient hands gathered weathered granite whose quartz, feldspar, and dark mica would eventually become the pale field resting before the Hojo. The mountain never visited the temple. The temple quietly invited the mountain to continue existing in another form. Perhaps every garden is less an imitation of nature than a continuation of it. The silence deepens, not because more sounds disappear, but because each remaining sound finds its proper place. The insects continue their distant chorus. The water continues flowing through bamboo. The occasional breeze continues passing among unseen branches. Nothing seeks to become louder than anything else. Harmony has no need to compete. Toward the rear of the temple, the small stone basin rests beneath the gathering night. Its inscription can no longer be read without light. Yet the water within still reflects whatever the darkness chooses to offer. A drifting cloud, a pale fragment of moon, the passing outline of a branch. The words carved into stone have become invisible. Their presence has not. Perhaps wisdom resembles an inscription remembered after it can no longer be seen. And while the night slowly settles over Ryoan-ji, the garden remains awake in its own quiet way, receiving dew instead of sunlight, moonlight instead of shadow, and silence so complete that even the unseen spaces seem to breathe with the patient rhythm of the ancient world itself. Within the quiet hours before midnight, the temple seems to become lighter rather than darker. As familiar outlines gradually dissolve, attention begins resting upon gentler things, the coolness lingering in the air, the delicate scent rising from damp earth beyond the walls, the almost invisible weight of dew settling across stone and timber alike. Night has removed very little. It has simply asked the senses to listen differently. The gravel, hidden beneath moonlight too soft to reveal every ridge, now resembles an open sheet of pale mist resting upon the earth. Somewhere beneath that quiet surface, each carefully drawn line remains exactly as it was at sunrise, preserved by the countless angular faces of weathered granite gently holding one another in place. Even unseen order continues existing. There is comfort in knowing that not everything requires constant confirmation. A passing cloud drifts across the moon. For several quiet moments, the courtyard becomes almost indistinguishable from the surrounding darkness. The stones disappear first, then the moss, then the wall. Finally, even the veranda seems to dissolve into shadow until only the cool fragrance of cypress confirms its presence. The temple has not vanished. It simply waits beyond sight. How many things accompany us throughout life in this same patient manner? Breath, memory, affection, the passing of years. They remain quietly beside us even when our attention wanders elsewhere. When the cloud continues on its slow journey, silver light gradually returns. Not all at once. A single edge of one stone appears. A narrow ribbon of pale gravel follows. The low earthen wall gently emerges like the distant shoreline of a forgotten coast. One form welcomes another back into visibility. There is no sudden revelation, only recognition. The garden has always trusted gradualness. Perhaps that is why even silence seems to unfold here instead of merely existing. Far beyond the monastery, moisture continues gathering among the mountain forests surrounding Kyoto. Their slopes quietly shape the city's hidden climate, holding cool air within the basin long after sunset. Every tree contributes something almost impossible to measure. A little shade, a little mist, a little rain carried by tomorrow's clouds. The temple owes much of its peaceful character to landscapes that never appear within its walls. The unseen has always participated. Tiny droplets continue collecting upon the moss surrounding the ancient stones. Within the soft cushions of Shura-ga-go, hidden chambers fill once more with water gathered from the air itself. Nearby, the creeping branches of high-go stretch quietly across shaded ground, binding scattered patches into one continuous living carpet. The upright sugi-go catches the moonlight differently. Each slender stem resembles a miniature cedar touched by frost. Entire forests exist here, only smaller. It is tempting to imagine that nature enjoys repeating itself at different scales. Mountains become stones. Forests become moss. Rivers become carefully raked currents. The sky becomes a reflection resting within a small basin of water. Nothing has been copied. Everything has simply continued speaking in another voice. Along the covered corridors, no footsteps sound now. The monastery sleeps. The pathways remain empty, though they seem no less purposeful for their stillness. Every right angle continues waiting. Every threshold remains prepared to receive the first quiet movements of dawn. Architecture rests without abandoning its intention. Even empty halls possess direction. The long north to south alignment of the temple quietly follows the same order through darkness that it follows beneath the sun. Air continues moving gently through the spaces between buildings, guided by arrangements established centuries ago with remarkable care. Wind has never needed daylight to remember its path. A faint rustling rises somewhere among unseen bamboo. Perhaps a branch has bowed beneath the growing weight of dew. Perhaps a small bird has shifted while sleeping. The sound lasts only a moment before returning to the greater stillness surrounding it. The garden never competes with these quiet interruptions. Instead, it receives them as a calm lake receives circles formed by a single falling leaf. Nothing is disturbed, only expanded. The old wall continues standing beneath its protective roof of cypress bark. Tonight, countless tiny droplets rest upon that weathered covering, each reflecting a fragment of moonlight before slowly slipping back into darkness. Decades from now, careful hands will replace these layers of bark, just as generations before have done. The clay beneath will continue breathing. The wall will continue weathering. The people performing that careful work may never know the names of those who sheltered it before them. Nor will they know the names of those who will follow. Yet their labor quietly joins them all. There is a gentle freedom in caring for something that belongs more to time than to ourselves. Near the rear of the Hojo, the small stone basin remains almost motionless beneath the night sky. Its carved inscription cannot easily be seen. its water can. A breeze passes softly over the surface. The reflection of the moon bends for an instant into delicate ripples before becoming whole again. Contentment may resemble this quiet water, not because it never changes, but because it always remembers how to become still again, somewhere beyond the temple grounds, where cultivated pathways gradually yield to forest soil. Weather continues shaping the granite hidden beneath the earth. Rain enters tiny fractures. Winter cold slowly widens them. Season after season, stone relinquishes fragments too small to notice. One day, perhaps many generations from now, another handful of pale mineral may begin its own quiet journey toward a garden yet unmade. Nothing in nature seems hurried. Even mountains practice patience. Within the monastery, the wide wooden rake rests against a familiar wall. Its carefully spaced teeth cast faint shadows beneath the moon. Tomorrow morning they will once again descend into the gravel, renewing patterns that wind and rain have only gently softened. The work will not repeat yesterday. It will answer today. No two mornings ever ask precisely the same question. The rake has learned to listen before it replies. Nearby, the bamboo broom leans silently where it was placed at dusk. Its countless slender strands, woven together by human hands, remain ready for another quiet conversation with fallen leaves. Tools sleep differently than people. They dream only of service. As the night grows deeper, even the distant call of insects becomes less frequent. The intervals between sounds lengthen. Water continues flowing through unseen bamboo. Then comes the familiar hollow note. Tok. The darkness receives it without echoing loudly. Instead, the sound seems to settle gently into the earth itself, joining all the quiet moments that have gathered here across centuries. Perhaps places remember not through words, but through rhythms, the measured breath of meditation, the slow passage of clouds, the careful drawing of gravel, the turning of seasons, the patient return of dawn after every night. And somewhere beyond the visible stones, beyond the pale field of granite, beyond the old wall that has watched so many generations arrive and depart, the unseen world continues its own quiet work, preparing moisture for the moss, shaping granite within the mountains, guiding water toward tomorrow's bamboo, and allowing the temple to remain exactly what it has always been, not separate from nature, but gently carried within its endless, unhurried breath. The deepest hours of the night possess a quiet unlike any other. It is not merely the absence of voices, nor the stillness that follows the day's activity. It is a gentleness that seems to settle into every surface, the cypress beneath the veranda, the weathered stones, the pale field of gravel, even the spaces between them. The entire monastery appears to breathe more slowly, as though time itself has become content with moving at the pace of drifting mist. The moon has climbed higher now. Its light no longer stretches long shadows across the garden as it did earlier. Instead, it descends almost vertically, washing the courtyard with an even, silvery calm. The carefully raked seimen no longer resemble waves rolling toward a distant shore. Now they appear like soft currents of wind crossing an open field. Nothing has changed. Only the light, how quietly perspective transforms the world. The same pattern that suggested water beneath the morning sun now whispers of invisible air beneath the midnight sky. Perhaps the garden was never intended to imitate anything. Perhaps it simply offers enough silence for the heart to recognize whatever it most gently carries. A thin veil of mist begins to gather where the cool mountain air settles into Kyoto's basin. It moves almost unnoticed along the base of the old earthen wall, softening its weathered texture until clay and vapor seem to belong to the same substance. The wall has watched this quiet meeting countless times. Winter fog, spring rain, summer humidity, autumn dew, none remain. All return, nothing here clings to permanence, yet nothing feels temporary. Somewhere beyond the temple, unseen streams continue their patient descent from the mountains. They pass over granite, around roots, beneath fallen branches, carrying with them fragments too small for the eye to notice. Long before one generation replaces another, long before bark is renewed upon the protecting roof, long before gravel must be supplemented with newly crushed stone, the mountain has already begun preparing what the future will require. Nature has always been working ahead of us. The thought settles gently like dew upon moss. Near the clustered stones, moisture grows heavier. Tiny beads gather along each slender leaf of suji goat, making the miniature forest appear almost luminous beneath the moon. Beside it, the soft carpets of high goat seem to absorb not only water, but silence itself, spreading quietly across shaded ground with the patience of something that has never needed to hurry. Every form of life here grows differently, yet none compete. The taller moss never overshadows the lower. The faster never mocks the slower. The ancient stones offer room to each without preference. There are communities that exist without comparison. Perhaps this is one of them. The polished veranda cools further, its smooth surface, worn by centuries of careful footsteps and seated meditation, now holds the faint sheen of moisture carried by the night air. One could imagine generations of monks sitting here before dawn, not seeking extraordinary visions, but simply allowing the world to arrive exactly as it wished. The garden has never promised answers, only companionship. It accompanies the changing sky, the turning seasons, the quiet aging of timber, the gentle rounding of stone, and the gradual softening of those who spend enough time listening. Beyond the hojo, the interior rooms remain open to the darkness through gently folded shoji screens. There are no fixed boundaries demanding where one space must end and another begin. The architecture breathes. Rooms expand into corridors. Corridors dissolve toward the veranda. The veranda welcomes the courtyard. The courtyard quietly joins the mountain air. The mountain air carries the distant forest. Nothing stands entirely alone. Perhaps emptiness has never meant absence. Perhaps it has always meant connection without obstruction. A faint sound arises from somewhere high among the cedar branches. An owl shifts upon its perch. No call follows, only the soft movement of feathers settling once more. The forest, too, practices restraint. Not every presence needs to announce itself. The old bamboo flume continues feeding water into the waiting tube. Drop after drop, always the same, never identical. The bamboo darkens where countless seasons of flowing water have polished its surface. Its hollow interior has carried thousands upon thousands of quiet cycles. Weight gathers, balance changes, then the familiar note returns. Tok. The sound is neither expected nor surprising. It belongs so completely to this place that silence seems to make room for it before it arrives. Afterward, nothing rushes to replace it. The pause itself becomes part of the music. The wide wooden rake waits where it has rested since evening, its carefully carved teeth each shaped to press deep, parallel ridges into the angular Shirakawa gravel, cast delicate shadows beneath the moonlight. In a few hours, hands will lift it again, not because yesterday's work has failed, but because the wind has continued speaking, because the rain may have visited, because pollen has settled unseen, because time leaves gentle fingerprints upon every surface. Care is not the correction of mistakes. It is a conversation with change. The ancient manual of garden making speaks quietly through every stone, though no voice recites its words aloud. Each rock remains where its own character allows it to rest. Not imposed, not forced, only understood. The larger stones lean with quiet confidence. The smaller ones answer them without imitation. Together they create a balance that feels less designed than discovered. Human hands arranged them. Nature completed them. Somewhere far beyond these walls, travelers sleep beneath the same moon. They know nothing of the hidden stone clusters within Ryoan-ji. Nothing of the polished veranda. Nothing of the moss quietly drinking the night's moisture. Yet they breathe the same cool air, moving across the islands of Japan. Clouds passing above the temple will eventually continue toward distant valleys. Rain falling upon another mountain may one day nourish the forests that shelter future gardens. Everything travels, even stillness. The stone basin behind the Hojo remains perfectly calm once more. Its water now reflects a sky scattered with quiet stars. The carved words surrounding it cannot be read in this light, yet perhaps they no longer need to be. Some teachings eventually leave the stone and settle gently into habit. Contentment is no longer a sentence. It becomes the manner in which water receives the moon without trying to keep it. As the night slowly approaches its final hours, the darkness itself seems to grow softer rather than deeper. The first invisible hints of tomorrow already exist somewhere beyond the eastern mountains, though no light has yet touched the temple roofs. The garden does not wait impatiently for dawn. It receives the night completely before welcoming morning. Perhaps this is another form of wisdom, to belong entirely to the moment that has already arrived. And so the quiet monastery continues resting within Kyoto's mountain basin. While dew gathers upon moss, water follows its ancient path through bamboo, unseen forests breathe into open courtyards, and the stones keep their patient company with the pale gravel, asking nothing from the passing centuries except the simple privilege of remaining exactly where time has gently invited them to be. Somewhere beyond the eastern ridges surrounding Kyoto, morning has already begun its quiet journey, though the temple remains wrapped in the final embrace of night. The darkness here no longer feels complete. It has become transparent. The stars still linger above unseen rooftops, yet their brilliance has softened, as though they too understand that another light is patiently approaching. Nothing hastens the exchange. Night does not retreat. Dawn does not advance. They simply meet. The courtyard rests within that gentle meeting. The pale gravel, which only moments ago gathered silver from the moon, begins to surrender that borrowed light. Its surface appears almost without color now, neither bright nor dark, existing in a calm interval where one day has not fully ended and the next has not yet begun. Perhaps every beginning first learns how to become quiet. The ancient stones remain motionless, their weathered faces sculpted by centuries long before they found this resting place, hold the coolness accumulated through the night. A thin film of moisture darkens their rough surfaces, deepening hidden shades of green, blue, and charcoal that daylight will gradually reveal. Water has remarkable patience. It never changes stone all at once. It merely visits, again and again. The moss surrounding each cluster has become rich with dew. Countless droplets rest among delicate leaves, each one reflecting a tiny fragment of the awakening sky. Together they resemble a constellation that has gently descended from above, choosing for a little while to live among the quiet gardens of the earth. The heavens and the ground exchange reflections more often than we notice. A cool breath of air wanders through the open corridors. The temple receives it without resistance. Passing beneath the roofed walkways, it brushes exposed timber polished smooth by generations of hands. It slips beyond the veranda and glides across the gravel without disturbing a single carefully drawn ridge. Not every movement leaves a trace. Some transformations happen through touch alone. Within the sleeping monastery, silence slowly changes its character. It is no longer the deep stillness of midnight. Now it carries a subtle expectation, not of excitement, but of return. Soon, sliding doors will open. Bare feet will meet cool wood. The rake will once again descend toward the pale field of granite. Yet none of these moments have arrived. For now, possibility itself is enough. Near the rear of the Hojo, the water basin quietly receives the fading stars. Its surface remains almost perfectly still. The carved inscription surrounding it disappears into shadow. Yet the basin continues teaching without words. Water never keeps the sky. It only reflects it for a while. Perhaps contentment has always been less about possessing beauty than allowing beauty to pass gently through us. Far beyond the monastery walls, hidden forests begin greeting the earliest birds. Their voices are faint at first, one note, then another, not yet a chorus. Only scattered reminders that life has remained awake in places unseen. The sound reaches the temple softened by distance, blending with the murmur of leaves carrying tiny beads of moisture toward the waiting earth below. Every forest has its own morning. Every garden quietly borrows from it. The bamboo tube beside the stone basin continues filling. Its rhythm has not changed through the long night. Only the air surrounding it has grown lighter. Water gathers. Weight shifts. Then, tock. The familiar note seems gentler now, less solitary, as though dawn itself has begun listening. Its brief resonance drifts through the cool corridors before dissolving among cedar branches, preparing to welcome daylight. No sound lingers forever, yet every sound leaves the silence slightly richer than before. A faint brightness begins touching the highest edges of the old earthen wall, not enough to reveal its familiar ochre tones, only enough to separate its outline from the sky beyond. The clay, shaped centuries ago and protected beneath layers of cypress bark, renewed through generations of careful hands, quietly receives another morning exactly as it received the last. There is something deeply reassuring about materials that welcome time without argument. The wall does not resist weather. The gravel does not resist wind. The moss does not resist rain. Acceptance has become their greatest strength. Perhaps endurance has always grown from the same gentle root. Somewhere within the monastery, a sliding shoji door moves, almost silently across its wooden track. The sound is barely louder than breathing. One room opens toward another. Another opens toward the veranda. The veranda opens toward the garden. No abrupt threshold interrupts the unfolding space. The architecture continues revealing that emptiness is not separation, it is invitation. Soon a monk steps quietly onto the polished boards. His movement carries neither urgency nor hesitation. He pauses for a single breath before the garden. The stones have not changed, neither has the gravel. Yet the morning that surrounds them has never existed before. Each dawn offers the same landscape through entirely different light. Perhaps this is why one never truly sees the same garden twice. The wide wooden rake waits nearby. Its smooth handle bears the quiet polish left by countless hands across centuries. The carefully spaced teeth, shaped to press firm lines into the angular Shirakawa gravel, still carry traces of yesterday's work. In a few moments they will begin again, not erasing, renewing. Straight ridges will emerge first, extending patiently across the pale surface. Then gentle circles will grow around each cluster of stones, meeting the parallel lines with quiet precision. The patterns may appear familiar, the gestures never are. Each movement answers the exact condition of this morning's gravel, this morning's moisture, this morning's wind. Attention never repeats itself. Nearby, the bamboo broom waits beside the corridor. A few pine needles have arrived during the night, tiny gifts from unseen branches. No frustration greets them, only welcome. The garden has never expected the trees to stop shedding. The trees have never expected the monks to stop sweeping. Both simply continue their own faithful work. Perhaps harmony is not agreement. Perhaps it is mutual generosity. The eastern sky slowly brightens beyond the mountain ridges. The moon begins yielding its quiet authority to the coming sun. Its reflection fades from the water basin without complaint. Nothing in nature seems reluctant to let another beauty arrive. The stars disappear. The dew remains. Soon the dew will disappear. The stones remain. Seasons change. The mountain remains. Even the mountain changes. And still the garden continues, welcoming each transformation with the same peaceful composure that has carried it across centuries. The first true light of morning finally reaches the edge of the white gravel. One narrow band begins glowing with delicate warmth. The rest of the courtyard still belongs to night. For a few precious moments, both worlds exist together, shadow and light, night and dawn, stillness and movement, memory and beginning. The garden chooses neither. It quietly holds them both, allowing one day to fade into another with such gentleness that even time itself seems reluctant to disturb the silence resting among the ancient stones. Morning does not enter the monastery all at once. It arrives the way clear water fills a quiet basin, without haste, without declaration, until one day has gently become another. The first pale light resting upon the eastern edge of the gravel slowly widens across the courtyard, revealing once more the subtle language that darkness had carefully entrusted to memory. Each ridge of the raked Shirakawa granite begins casting the smallest shadow. Nothing dramatic, only a fine line of darkness beside a fine line of light. Together they awaken the illusion of flowing currents that have never moved. Quartz catches the newborn sunlight first. Tiny translucent faces begin shimmering almost imperceptibly among the pale fragments. Beside them, quiet flecks of feldspar offer a softer glow, while scattered grains of dark biotite remain patient, holding small islands of shadow between brighter surfaces. The gravel has become a landscape of stars beneath the feet of morning. It is remarkable how something born within mountains can continue speaking through light long after leaving the cliffs from which it came. The monk kneels beside the waiting rake. There is no ceremony announcing the beginning of his work, only a single unhurried breath. His hands settle naturally around the polished handle, touching wood that has slowly become smooth through generations of identical gestures performed by people whose names have long disappeared into history. The tool remembers them, not as faces, as movement. The first pull across the gravel begins almost silently. The wide wooden head presses downward with quiet certainty, its carefully spaced teeth entering the angular surface until each ridge rises with clean precision behind it. The sound is delicate, a dry whisper. Granite speaking to wood, no rhythm is imposed. Instead, the monk follows the subtle resistance offered by the gravel itself. Each particle meets another through countless tiny edges that gently hold their places together, allowing steep crests to emerge without collapsing. The material quietly guides the hand. Perhaps mastery begins when listening becomes more important than control. Another line appears, then another. Each extends patiently from one side of the garden toward the other. They neither rush nor hesitate. Like measured breathing, every stroke quietly prepares the next. Nothing asks to be admired. Everything asks to be attended. When the long parallel ridges reach the first cluster of stones, the movement changes. Straight lines gradually yield to circles. The rake no longer travels across the garden. It begins moving around it, slowly, carefully. The concentric ripples widen outward from ancient rock as though invisible rain had just touched an otherwise perfect sea. Where circle meets line, the monk pauses. Only for an instant, the smallest adjustment follows. The new curve settles seamlessly into the older geometry without disturbing either. No pattern competes with another. Each simply makes room. Perhaps kindness is another form of careful spacing. The rising sun continues climbing beyond the eastern mountains. Its lower angle lengthens every ridge into delicate bands of alternating brightness and shadow, revealing the extraordinary depth hidden within only a few centimeters of carefully shaped gravel. By midday, these contrasts will soften. The same garden will appear flatter, less sculptural, yet neither light is more truthful. Morning simply notices details that noon quietly leaves behind. The old wall awakens as well, its weathered clay, enriched over centuries by rapeseed oil slowly migrating toward the surface, glows with warm tones impossible to separate from time itself. Amber earth, ochre. The colors seem less painted than remembered. Rain has deepened them. Sun has faded them. Wind has polished them. Every season has quietly signed its name upon the wall. No signature asks to be read. Beyond the courtyard, the surrounding forests answer the growing daylight. Birdsong now comes more frequently, though never loudly enough to disturb the measured silence of the temple. The voices arrive softened by distance, weaving naturally with the gentle rasp of the rake and the faint murmur of flowing water somewhere beyond the veranda. No conductor gathers these sounds, yet together they become morning. The moss surrounding the stones has fully awakened. Moisture gathered throughout the night now shines briefly beneath the first direct rays of sunlight before gradually returning to the air. Within moments too small to witness, droplets disappear, the leaves remain, water has departed, life continues. Nothing clings to what has already been given. The polished cypress veranda slowly warms beneath the advancing light. Its cool surface begins releasing the faint fragrance carried within old timber, a quiet mixture of resin, cedar memory, and countless seasons absorbed into grain so fine that every board seems to hold its own gentle history. If wood could speak, perhaps it would tell stories not of construction, but of waiting, waiting through snow, waiting through rain, waiting through another dawn exactly like this one. The monk continues drawing careful circles around the final cluster of stones. For a brief moment he stops, not because the work is complete, because a single fallen leaf has settled near the outer edge of the pattern. He reaches down. Bare fingers lift it lightly. The surrounding ridges remain untouched. The leaf returns quietly to the forest beyond the wall. No struggle has taken place, only a change of place. The garden welcomes each thing according to its moment. Nearby, another monk carries a bamboo broom along the covered corridor. Its countless fine strands scarcely touch the polished floor. Dust gathered overnight disappears with a few gentle movements. Nothing dramatic is removed, only what no longer belongs. Perhaps clarity is often achieved through subtraction rather than addition. As the morning grows brighter, the famous arrangement of 15 stones quietly resumes its familiar conversation with perception. From the veranda, 14 reveal themselves. One remains hidden. A slight shift of the observer changes everything. The unseen stone appears. Another quietly disappears behind its companion. The garden has altered nothing. Only the point of view has moved. How many certainties in life resemble this quiet arrangement? How often does completeness already exist while remaining just beyond a single angle of sight? The stones offer no answer. Only another invitation to remain seated a little longer. The bamboo tube beside the basin continues its timeless rhythm. Morning sunlight catches tiny droplets clinging to its weathered surface. Water gathers, balance changes, then tug. The sound now feels brighter than it did beneath the night. Not louder, simply warmed by daylight. Its brief resonance slips across the courtyard before dissolving into birdsong, moving so naturally into the morning that neither silence nor sound seems to know exactly where one has ended and the other has begun. The gentle resonance fades into the morning until it becomes impossible to know whether the quiet has absorbed the sound or whether the sound has simply become another form of quiet. The courtyard continues receiving the growing light. With every passing moment, details hidden only minutes before begin revealing themselves with effortless patience. Fine grains of gravel sparkle briefly and then return to softness. Tiny droplets resting upon the moss surrender themselves to the warmth of the sun, leaving behind no trace except the richer green they quietly nourished. Even disappearance can become an act of generosity. The monk remains beside the completed patterns. His hands no longer move. The rake rests lightly against the gravel, its wooden teeth still touching the pale surface without disturbing it. There is a long pause, not to admire the work, simply to share the same morning. Perhaps this has always been the unseen purpose of Samu. The body labors, the mind arrives. No boundary separates one from the other. The final line of the garden was never drawn by the rake. It was drawn by attention itself. A cool breeze descends from the surrounding hills, wandering through the temple complex before crossing the open courtyard. It slips beneath the deep eaves, brushes the polished cypress boards and continues toward the old earthen wall where a few loose pine needles wait among the moss. None reach the gravel. The wall catches them first. Even barriers can become acts of quiet protection. Farther beyond the hojo, the covered corridors begin welcoming the first measured footsteps of the day. The sound is almost weightless, bare feet, breath, nothing more. One monk passes toward another hall, following the familiar right angles that have quietly guided movement here for centuries. No diagonal path tempts him. No shortcut calls his attention. The architecture has already chosen a slower rhythm, allowing the body to inherit it without instruction. Sometimes the shape of a building teaches more gently than any spoken lesson. Sunlight continues climbing. The shadows within the Seiman become shorter now, their dramatic relief gradually softening. The same carefully formed ridges that appeared like mountain ranges beneath the earliest light now resemble calm ripples stretching across an endless white sea. No pattern has changed, only the conversation between light and stone. The garden has never insisted upon a single meaning, because the sky itself never offers a single light. Near one cluster of weathered rocks, the moss has begun releasing the night's stored moisture back into the air. Its tiny leaves remain open, gathering the morning without holding tightly to what the darkness provided. To live in harmony with changing weather, perhaps that is another way of describing wisdom. The ancient stones carry warmth differently. Their broad surfaces slowly absorb the first sunlight, though hidden crevices remain cool for much longer. Small variations of temperature spread quietly across every weathered face, creating countless invisible climates upon a single rock. Life often flourishes within differences too subtle for hurried eyes to notice. Somewhere within those narrow shadows, delicate threads of moss continue finding exactly the conditions they require. The mountain still provides. Even after becoming stone, the mountain still breathes. Even after becoming gravel, a bird lands briefly upon the cypress roof protecting the earthen wall. Its weight is almost nothing. For a few moments it watches the courtyard below before lifting once again into the brightening sky. The roof remains. The bird continues. Neither keeps the other. It is remarkable how peacefully the world allows meetings to remain temporary. Beyond the monastery, Kyoto slowly awakens. The city rests within its mountain basin, much as it has for centuries, gathering cool morning air before the warmth of the day gradually settles across tiled roofs and winding streets. The temple is not separate from the city, nor is the city separate from the mountains. Mist becoming rain, rain becoming rivers, rivers wearing granite, granite becoming gravel, gravel becoming quiet seas around ancient stones. The journey never truly ends, it only changes its form. Near the rear garden, clear water continues entering the bamboo tube with unwavering patience. Nothing urges it forward. Nothing delays it. Its pace belongs entirely to gravity. As the hollow chamber gradually fills, the familiar balance shifts. Then, toke. Morning birds pause only for an instant before continuing their songs. The breeze carries the sound toward the veranda. The veranda offers it to the courtyard. The courtyard releases it toward the forest. Everything receives. Everything passes onward. Perhaps this is why nothing here seems to possess anything. Not even sound. The polished cypress floor now glows softly beneath the strengthening sun. Generations of careful walking have left no footprints upon its surface, only smoothness. Perhaps this is the quiet miracle of repeated kindness. Not that it leaves visible marks, but that it slowly removes roughness instead. Near the edge of the veranda, a monk settles into stillness. The garden stretches before him, 15 stones, endless gravel, ancient wall, nothing more, nothing less. From where he sits, one stone remains hidden beyond another. The familiar mystery returns, yet today it feels different. Not because the arrangement has changed, because yesterday's thoughts are no longer today's thoughts. A single viewing place, infinite observers. Perhaps the unseen stone was never intended to test the eye. Perhaps it gently reminds the heart that wholeness does not depend upon complete possession. The bamboo broom returns to quiet work. Its slender branches gather scattered needles from the wooden corridor with careful movements that scarcely disturb the silence. No leaf resists, no broom triumphs. Each simply fulfills its own brief moment within a much longer rhythm. Soon more needles will fall. Soon another morning will arrive. The work has never expected to finish. Completion has never been its purpose. Care has. The old clay wall continues warming beneath the sunlight. Its weathered surface bears the memory of countless seasons, though none remain visible individually. Rain cannot be separated from wind. Summer cannot be separated from winter. Centuries cannot be separated from one another. Time has blended them all into a single quiet texture. Perhaps this is what age truly looks like. Not accumulation, integration. Nothing discarded, nothing displayed. Everything gently becoming one. The air grows slightly warmer. The fragrance of cedar deepens around the veranda. Somewhere beyond the temple grounds, unseen streams continue their patient descent toward distant rivers, carrying with them tiny grains released from mountain stone. Long after today's footprints have disappeared, long after today's shadows have shifted, long after today's birds have finished singing, the mountains will still be quietly preparing tomorrow's gardens. And here, within the calm embrace of Ryoan-ji, the morning continues, unfolding with the same serene generosity that has greeted countless generations before, allowing every stone, every grain of pale granite, every breath of cool mountain air, and every unhurried gesture of human hands to belong equally to the endless conversation between nature, time, and the quiet heart that chooses, for a little while, simply to remain and listen. Listening slowly becomes indistinguishable from belonging. Without anyone noticing the precise moment, the quiet observer seated upon the veranda is no longer simply looking toward the garden. Breath, light, timber, stone, and the gentle rhythm of morning have settled into such effortless harmony that the distance between the watcher and the world before him seems to dissolve as naturally as mist disappearing beneath the warming sun. The garden has never asked anyone to understand it, only to remain. The sunlight now reaches farther across the white expanse of Shirakawa gravel, awakening countless tiny reflections hidden within the weathered granite. Each angular grain answers the light differently. Quartz scatters a cool brilliance. Pale feldspar glows more softly, while the darker flecks of mica remain almost unnoticed until the sun catches them for the briefest instant. Nothing insists upon being seen first. Even brightness knows how to wait. The carefully drawn ridges continue stretching from east to west across the courtyard, their geometry still crisp after the morning's work. Beneath the surface, countless particles press gently against one another through their naturally fractured edges. Because each fragment quietly supports its neighbors, the delicate crests remain standing long after the rake has been lifted away. Strength often begins where countless small things choose cooperation over solitude. A pair of drifting clouds begins crossing the morning sky beyond the unseen roofline. No one watching from the veranda can see them directly. The deep eaves quietly prevent the eye from wandering upward, allowing attention to remain with stone, gravel, moss, and wall. Yet the clouds announce themselves in another way. The sunlight softens, the brilliant white garden becomes muted for a few gentle moments. Shadows lose their sharp edges. The ripples appear calmer. The sky enters the garden without ever becoming visible. Perhaps the most profound influences often arrive without asking to be noticed. The old wall welcomes the changing light with quiet dignity. Its weathered clay no longer glows with the warm richness of early morning. Instead, the surface becomes subdued beneath the passing clouds, revealing delicate variations of texture created by centuries of rain, drying winds, winter frost, and summer humidity. Every season has touched these walls differently. None has erased the others. Time has become layered rather than replaced. Nearby, the moss breathes according to moisture alone. It owns no hidden reservoir. No internal system protects it from the changing air. Its life rises and falls together with the atmosphere surrounding it. When humidity embraces the garden, the leaves quietly unfold. When dryness arrives, they gently curl inward, conserving what little water remains until another rain returns. There is remarkable courage in a life that trusts each season completely. Far beyond the monastery, invisible currents of warm air begin lifting from Kyoto's streets. The basin that cradles the city slowly gathers the day's warmth, while the surrounding mountains continue releasing cool air from shaded forests. Somewhere between these two worlds, the temple quietly rests, not resisting either, receiving both. The architecture has always understood what landscapes already know. Balance is rarely found by choosing one direction alone. The monk rises from the veranda. His movement is almost imperceptible. Wood answers softly beneath his feet, before falling silent once more. He begins walking along the covered corridor at the measured pace of Kinhin. Each half step follows one complete breath. Nothing interrupts the rhythm. Neither destination nor speed matters. The body simply learns to travel as slowly as breathing itself. The polished boards beneath him have carried this same deliberate movement through generations beyond counting. Their smoothness is not the result of hurried passage. It is the gift of patient return. At each corner, the corridor turns cleanly at a right angle. The path offers no diagonal shortcuts, no wandering curves. Every turn becomes an opportunity to awaken attention once again. Perhaps mindfulness sometimes lives inside architecture before it ever enters thought. The familiar arrangement of stones quietly watches each passing season without expectation. Dry beneath the strengthening sunlight, their surfaces gradually lose the dark richness left by dawn's moisture. Blues soften into grey. Greens retreat toward muted earth. The rocks appear lighter now, less dramatic, yet no less complete. Water had briefly revealed one character. Sunlight now reveals another. Nothing has been lost, only exchanged. A dragonfly glides briefly above the courtyard. Its transparent wings catch the light before disappearing beyond the wall. It never lands upon the gravel. The untouched patterns remain undisturbed. Some visitors leave no footprints at all. The bamboo flume continues delivering its endless thread of water. The hollow tube fills patiently. Every cycle resembles the last. Yet the interval quietly changes throughout the seasons. A stronger spring flow shortens the waiting. A gentler autumn stream lengthens it. The mechanism remains identical. The mountain changes the rhythm. Even constancy listens to weather. Again the bamboo tilts. Water pours into the waiting basin. The empty tube returns. Tock. This time the sound arrives while sunlight rests fully across the courtyard. It feels smaller than before, not because it has weakened, because morning itself has become richer. Birdsong, moving leaves, the faint whisper of robes passing through shaded corridors, the soft rasp of a bamboo broom somewhere unseen. The temple gathers every sound without allowing any single voice to dominate the others. Perhaps harmony is not perfect silence. Perhaps it is perfect proportion. Beyond the walls, countless people begin the ordinary work of another day. Merchants prepare their shops. Farmers walk toward distant fields. Children follow familiar streets. Travelers continue along old roads leading in and out of Kyoto. The monastery asks none of them to remain, nor does it withdraw from them. Like the garden itself, it quietly exists, offering stillness without demanding attention. Those who arrive receive it. Those who continue walking carry only what their hearts have quietly gathered. Near the famous Tsukubai basin, clear water continues collecting within the square opening carved into the shape of an ancient coin. The inscription surrounding it rests silently beneath the brightening sky. Its teaching no longer feels carved into stone. It seems woven into everything nearby. The contentment of moss accepting rain, the contentment of gravel accepting the rake, the contentment of timber accepting age, the contentment of stone accepting centuries. Perhaps wisdom sometimes becomes invisible because it has entered ordinary life completely. The clouds slowly drift onward. Sunlight returns with renewed clarity. Fresh shadows appear beneath every ridge once again. The garden changes without moving. The observer changes without leaving. And somewhere beyond the quiet temple grounds, rivers continue carrying fragments of ancient mountains toward distant valleys, while unseen forests release cool air into the basin of Kyoto, allowing this peaceful world to breathe with the same unhurried rhythm that has gently sustained it across generations, asking nothing more than the willingness to slow down enough to notice that even the smallest moment has always belonged to something immeasurably larger than itself. To remain a little longer is to discover that the garden has never truly repeated a single moment. The sun has climbed high enough that the long shadows of morning now withdraw beneath the stones themselves. The carefully raked gravel no longer resembles a sea stirred by distant winds, nor clouds drifting across invisible mountains. Under the fuller light of the approaching afternoon, it becomes something quieter still, a broad field of luminous stillness whose beauty no longer depends upon illusion, but upon simple presence. Nothing needs to become something else. The white expanse is complete simply by being white. The stones are complete simply by remaining stone. Perhaps there comes a moment when the mind grows weary of searching for meanings hidden behind appearances, and finally discovers the quiet freedom of allowing each thing to exist exactly as it is. The breeze that wandered gently through the corridors at dawn has softened. The warmth rising from Kyoto's basin now mingles with cooler air descending from cedar-covered slopes beyond the monastery. Invisible currents meet above tiled roofs and ancient courtyards, carrying faint fragrances of damp earth, sun, warm timber, distant pine resin, and water moving patiently somewhere beyond sight. The garden breathes with the valley. The valley breathes with the mountains. The mountains breathe with passing seasons. Nothing here keeps its life for itself. High above the courtyard, the unseen sky has become brighter still, though the deep eaves continue framing the world with remarkable restraint. From the veranda, one never needs to see the heavens directly to feel the changing course of the day. Light itself becomes the messenger. As brightness shifts across the gravel, every grain quietly records the journey of the sun. No clock hangs upon these walls. Shadow has always known the hour. The monk who completed the morning's careful raking has long since disappeared into the larger rhythm of monastery life. Perhaps he now tends another corridor. Perhaps he prepares a simple meal. Perhaps he copies ancient characters with a patient brush. Or perhaps he sits in complete stillness beyond another wooden doorway where no footsteps will pass for many hours. The garden does not follow him. It simply continues offering what he helped reveal. There is a quiet humility in work that does not seek to be remembered. Near the outer edge of one moss-covered stone, a tiny insect pauses upon a cushion of emerald green before continuing its invisible journey through miniature forests no taller than a hand. To that small traveler, the upright stems of sugi-gok rise like ancient cedar groves. Soft carpets of hay-gok become broad meadows stretching beyond sight. Scale has always belonged more to perception than to measurement. Even the smallest world can contain an endless landscape. The old clay wall rests beneath its sheltering cypress bark roof, receiving another day exactly as it has received countless others since careful hands rebuilt this place after the fires of war centuries ago. The flames that once consumed timber and halls are no longer present, only quiet remains. Destruction entered history for a brief moment. Patience remained. The rebuilt Hojo, standing since the closing years of the 15th century, has now watched generation after generation arrive, pause, and depart. Seasons have polished its wooden floors more faithfully than any artisan could have done. Children became elders. Elders became memory. The veranda simply continued greeting the light. Some endurance speaks without ever mentioning what it has survived. The pathways connecting hall to hall remain empty for a little while. Their careful right angles continue guiding movement, whether anyone walks them or not. They seem almost less like roads than thoughts gently given physical form, quiet reminders that direction need not be hurried to remain certain. A path does not become meaningful because many feet cross it. It becomes meaningful because each step receives its full attention. Somewhere beyond the temple, hidden streams continue carrying water borne among distant rocks. Long before that water reached these valleys, it touched mountain granite, slipped between roots, reflected unfamiliar stars, and gathered the memory of forests before arriving here to fill a simple bamboo tube beside a weathered stone basin. Nothing arrives empty. Everything carries a journey within it. Again the bamboo slowly fills. Again gravity patiently waits until balance gently yields. Again the familiar sound appears. Tok, Now the note feels almost inseparable from the air itself, like the rustling of leaves, like the distant call of a bird, like breathing. The sound has ceased being an event. It has become part of the landscape. Perhaps the deepest wisdom eventually becomes just as ordinary, not hidden, simply woven so completely into daily life that it no longer announces itself. The famous 15 stones continue offering their quiet conversation to every observer who pauses upon the veranda. From one place, only 14 reveal themselves. The unseen companion remains beyond sight. Some visitors may spend long moments searching for the hidden stone. Others eventually forget to search at all. There is peace in both responses. One seeks completeness. The other discovers contentment within incompleteness. The garden gently embraces each without choosing between them. Far beyond these walls, years continue unfolding into centuries. The city surrounding the monastery will change countless times. Roofs will be replaced. Roads will widen. Voices will become unfamiliar. New generations will arrive, carrying questions unknown to those before them. Yet each morning, somewhere within this enclosed courtyard, someone will almost certainly draw fresh lines across pale granite with the same careful attention practiced by hands long returned to silence. The pattern disappears. The practice remains. The names fade. The gesture continues. Perhaps this is how traditions truly survive, not because they resist time, but because they quietly enter it. The sun now rests high above the unseen roofline. The gravel reflects its brightness with calm generosity, while the stones gather warmth that will slowly return to the evening air many hours from now. Even heat becomes another quiet traveler, passing through the garden without asking to stay. Everything here participates in exchange. Nothing insists upon possession. The water basin still receives the sky. The moss still receives the rain when it comes. The timber still receives the changing seasons. The old wall still receives the patient touch of light. The garden itself receives every visitor without asking who they were before they arrived. Perhaps that has always been the quiet miracle of places shaped by genuine attention. They never ask us to become someone else. They simply create enough stillness for us to notice who has been quietly present all along. And while sunlight continues its slow passage above the hidden mountains surrounding Kyoto, while cedar forests breathe cool air into the valley, while water patiently follows gravity toward rivers beyond the temple grounds, and while fresh shadows gradually prepare themselves for another evening yet to come, the peaceful world within these ancient walls remains exactly as it has always wished to be, not frozen outside of time, but gently alive within it, allowing every passing hour to become another soft brushstroke upon a landscape that never truly finishes becoming itself. Little by little, the afternoon begins yielding itself to a gentler light. The brightness that only hours ago rested evenly across the pale gravel now starts its quiet descent toward evening. Shadows, almost forgotten beneath the midday sun, slowly gather once more beside the ancient stones. They return so gradually that no single moment can truly be called their beginning. Time rarely announces its turning. It simply continues. The white surface of the garden changes again. What appeared at dawn like flowing water became luminous stillness beneath the afternoon sky. Now, As the sun lowers toward the western mountains beyond Kyoto, the carefully raked ridges begin catching light along one edge, while the opposite side gently slips into shadow. The landscape regains depth without changing its form. The same garden, another conversation with the sun. Perhaps nothing in the world ever remains identical because light itself is always traveling. The old earthen wall glows with quiet warmth. Its ochre surface, shaped from clay patiently strengthened by rapeseed oil centuries ago, gathers the color of the descending day. Tiny irregularities, invisible beneath stronger sunlight, slowly emerge once more. Every crack, every softened corner, every place where rain has lingered or summer winds have polished the surface becomes part of a larger story written without ink. The wall remembers through texture. The stones remember through silence. The moss remembers through renewal. Each keeps history differently. The monk who once traced careful lines through the Shirakawa gravel no longer stands within the courtyard. His work remains, not as evidence of achievement, as an invitation. Soon another breeze drifts quietly across the open garden. Its touch is light enough that the freshly formed ridges remain perfectly intact, yet cool enough to carry the first subtle promise of evening down from the surrounding mountains. The basin of Kyoto begins breathing differently once again. Warm air slowly rises. Cool forest air gently descends. The valley prepares for night long before darkness appears. Nature has always begun tomorrow before today has completely ended. Somewhere beyond the temple walls, unseen waters continue flowing toward rivers that will eventually disappear into distant seas. Their journey asks for no audience. It is enough that they move. Perhaps the same is true of time. We do not hear centuries passing. We notice only that timber has grown smoother beneath gentle hands. That stone has accepted another winter. That moss has awakened after another rain. The great movements of history often leave the quietest footprints. Along the polished veranda, late sunlight settles across the cypress boards. The wood seems almost golden now, revealing delicate patterns hidden within its grain. Each board has expanded through humid summers and contracted beneath dry winter air, more times than memory could ever count. Yet together they remain. Individual pieces, shared purpose. There is comfort in things that age beside one another. The familiar pathways connecting hall to hall receive another measured walk, not hurried, not delayed, simply faithful. Each careful turn reminds the body that direction is not only about arriving somewhere else. Sometimes direction is the manner in which we inhabit the place where we already stand. Beyond the veranda, the 15 stones quietly continue their patient conversation with every passing observer. One remains hidden, always. Yet by now the unseen stone no longer feels like a puzzle waiting to be solved. It has become something gentler. A quiet companion reminding us that every landscape, every person, every lifetime contains unseen places that deserve neither fear nor conquest, only respect. The bamboo tube fills again. Its rhythm has accompanied morning, midday, and now the slow approach of evening without altering its patient nature. Water gathers, balance shifts. Tock. The sound moves softly through warm air. It reaches the veranda, the old wall, the moss, the trees beyond. Nothing answers it, nothing needs to. Its brief life is complete simply because it was heard. Far above the unseen roofline, clouds begin gathering the warm colors of the descending sun. Though hidden from direct view, Their presence quietly transforms everything below. The gravel becomes warmer, the stones cast longer shadows, the wall deepens toward amber, the moss glows with a softer green. The sky enters the garden once more without revealing itself. Perhaps the most beautiful companions are those whose presence is known through what they gently change rather than through what they display. The monastery continues breathing at its own unhurried pace. Some monks prepare the evening meal. Others walk the quiet corridors. Some pause beside open rooms where light and shadow meet upon polished floors. No single moment asks to become extraordinary. The ordinary has already become enough. That may be the quiet gift these gardens have protected across the centuries. Not the promise of escaping the world, but the invitation to meet it more completely. The gravel will one day be raked again. Rain will soften its ridges. Fresh granite will eventually join older stones as weather slowly rounds their edges. The cypress bark sheltering the ancient wall will someday be replaced by careful hands, just as it has been before. The moss will brown during dry days and awaken again beneath gentle rain. Visitors will arrive. Visitors will depart. Children yet unborn will someday sit where countless others have quietly rested before them. The garden welcomes every future without leaving the present. As the afternoon slowly leans toward evening, the first cool fragrance of cedar returns with the descending air from the mountains. It mingles with the faint scent of sun, warm timber, and the clean mineral brightness rising from pale granite that has gathered an entire day's light. The world exhales, and perhaps, without noticing exactly when it happened, we have begun breathing with it. The journey through these gardens has never truly been about reaching the end of a path. There was never a destination waiting beyond the final stone, only another season, another dawn, another careful sweep of the bamboo broom, another quiet stroke of the wooden rake, another drop of water gathering inside the bamboo tube, another visitor discovering that stillness is not the absence of life, but one of its most generous expressions. Long after this narration has faded into silence, the mountains surrounding Kyoto will continue sending cool morning air into the valley. The hidden streams will continue polishing ancient granite. The forests will continue breathing with the changing seasons. The old walls will continue gathering the colors of rain and sunlight. The veranda will continue welcoming those who pause. The 15 stones will continue revealing 14. The unseen one will continue waiting without impatience, and within the peaceful enclosure of Ryoan-ji, where empty space has always carried more than emptiness, the quiet conversation between nature, time, and the human heart will continue exactly as it always has, without needing an ending, because some places do not conclude when we leave them. They simply remain, patiently living their next gentle moment, until perhaps, on another quiet evening somewhere far in the future, another traveler slows their breathing, sits beside the weathered wood, looks toward the pale garden, and discovers that the world has been quietly waiting for them all along.